Welcome to the Grow Your Law Firm podcast, brought to you by Pilma. This podcast helps lead lawyers to more growth, profit, and freedom. Here is your legal marketing expert and host, Ken Hardison.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Grow Your Law Firm. Ken Hardison here, and today we have returning Eric Morgan with Roux Advertising. Welcome back, Eric.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity, and good to see you.
You too, man. So today we're going to talk about something, a couple of things, but I think we're going to call this "Who's in Charge." I like that title, Eric. We were talking before we jumped on the air, and the problem is I'm in the middle of masterminds right now down in Key West when I'm on my break day, although it's not a break. But I enjoy doing these podcasts. I learn something every time. So you see these masterminds, and they're doing TV and billboards, and they're doing SEO, and they're doing LSAs, and they're doing community events, and they're getting Google reviews, and they're working on their business page, and they're working opening up offices to get better LSAs, and they're all doing all these different things, radio, community events. But the question is SEO, PPC. But the question is, most firms, I mean, the ones doing over 10 million, they probably can afford to have somebody in charge of the marketing. But do they really understand how to pull it all together? I mean, I think there's a misnomer there, Eric, and you tell me, but sometimes I see people bring people in and they call them the director of marketing, and really they're just a marketing assistant. They're just implementing what they're told. But a true directing marketer or a chief marketing officer is helping with the planning and pulling everything together and holding everybody accountable and making sure there's a continuity, and there's a bigger plan. There's a bigger plan up there that maybe each vendor don't know individually, but somebody knows. But then a lot of times, I'd say over 70% of the time, there is not that person. Would you agree? And tell me what you're seeing.
Yeah, so I would agree 1,000%. And look, it varies from law firm to law firm. It varies on the clients that we represent. They've got different staffing on their teams, and we talk with a lot of people. They, like I've always said, call me, pick my brain, and people call me and pick my brain. And so while we're not working with those firms, we get a sense of what the operation looks like and so forth. And to your point, yes, people throw around titles, director of marketing, but then it's somebody who's kind of new in the industry, or they might be director or manager, but they end up just kind of executing the day-to-day kind of blocking and tackling. And there's nothing wrong with that. But to your question, who's in charge of the vision? Who's in charge of where the firm wants to go, what the brand stands for? Because most people think brand is, a logo and a URL and a phone number, and really the brand is what lives in the audience's brain. And so who's responsible for making sure that that's true and accurate inside the audience, your clientele's brain, and then following through from an accountability standpoint, making sure things happen. And look, and this is every industry, because we work in healthcare and in tourism and so forth. Oftentimes there's no one single owner, and that's a problem. And maybe it's not a terrible problem, or maybe not it's an end of the world problem, but it's something I think equally important, is that it weighs on the owner of the law firm, because then the owner feels this pressure to wear all the hats, to do all the hats, and think of things in the middle of the night and wonder about things in the middle of the night. Is that tagline being designed and concepted correctly? Is that tagline living everywhere, from the billboards, the ads, to how you answer the calls? And so there's not only the concept and visionary of the brand and the marketing and the execution, but it's just the day-to-day accountability and how are we tracking it and what's working and not working.
Yeah, I think so. And if everything was perfect and we were in Candyland and everybody it could be just the way it should be, what do you see as there's nothing perfect, near perfect setup for a law firm if they really want to get the most out of all their vendors and have a cohesive marketing plan that works? It gets every ounce of ROI out of what they're spending. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. Yeah. Well, somebody clearly needs to own the vision and where the firm is going. And that's part business plan, business strategy, but then that's part marketing as well, because the marketing's got to help play its role in getting there. So somebody's got to own that. And traditionally, that's the owner of the firm. They're that this is where we're going, and this is my 5-year plan, it's my 3-year plan, it's my 1-year plan. Within the 1-year plan, here's my 90-day cycles and the milestones I need to get. But from that, and that's where the owner lives. And then everything else needs to be passed on. So whether you call it a director of marketing, where you call it a marketing manager, where you call it whatever, somebody's got to own how do I make that those 90-day, those 1-year priorities of reaching whatever you're going to do. Because your goal might be, I'm going to double my revenue. Great. How are you going to double it? And you've got these priorities that are going to help you double your revenue. Somebody's got to own each of those priorities. And some of them are falling on marketing. And if you're large enough to have a marketing director, great. That marketing director is going to be able to understand the vision and be able to then interpret it to a point of marketing is going to play this role in helping get there. Now, it doesn't need to be a marketing director. It could be somebody that just has some other title, but they're well versed in how to bring the marketing alive to support that thing. And part of that is, and look, we're primarily media agency, although in the legal space, we do a lot of full service work, but people come to us really because of our media expertise. We're one of a team. You might have an SEO group over there, and you might have a PR team over there, and so forth. That marketing person needs to bring all of these people together, all of these partners together, and say, look, this is the vision. This is where we're going to want to go. Tell us from a marketing standpoint, from a media role standpoint, how do we get there? And so I come to the table and say, look, I see your vision. I understand what it is. From a role that we play in the space and responsibilities we cover, then this is what you can do. This is what you should be doing, and so forth. So you need an orchestrator, somebody like a conductor, bringing everything to the table, outlining the roadmap, the destination, here's where we go, so that we can all come to the table and say, look, media, reach, audience, frequency, channels, spending, investment allocation, cost per acquisition. Here's what that conversion rate looks like. Here's how we're going to get you there. And then creative needs to be doing the same thing. PR needs to be doing, community outreach needs to be doing the same thing. Now, some of that's in-house, some of that's external. But you need somebody, I don't care what the title is, that can wear the hats and can fulfill that. And it's not a conversation of what's my font or what's the color of the billboard kind of a conversation. Let's not get there yet. Let's get there with the planning. And does this sound like it's a smart plan? And what's the future revenue that this plan is going to bring us? And what's the projections and the accountability? Yeah, I mean, it builds off of the who's in charge kind of title of this conversation.
Yeah, my concept, and I learned this from a mentor, Dan Kennedy, many, many, many years ago, probably 30, 40 years ago. He said, you as the owner, your job is to make sure you don't delegate your voice or once you decide on your message and your voice, then you got to make that decision. But implementing that is you got to have other people because you got to work on the business. The deal is, he told me never delegate your checkbook and never delegate what your message is going to be. Have people help you create the message. But once you got it, don't let them start changing it. You know what I'm saying? Keep it.
Yep.
But then delegate out, and I guess this is where you come in with whatever you call them. You say whether they call them a marketing assistant, marketing manager, marketing director, marketing, whatever. You got to have somebody that understands that, and then can either work with the people underneath them, and sometimes in small firms they're doing a lot of the work themselves.
Yes.
And then some of it is above their pay grade, like SEO or something like that, or there's even companies now that help you with LSAs and different things like that to make sure that, or people doing social media, make sure that the message is consistent and it's getting out there and try to figure out, every time I do some marketing, some different article or some different media, I'm always trying to figure out what am I trying to do? What's my purpose? Because sometimes it might be just for branding. I mean, just to get your name out there. Sometimes it might be to get them to raise their hand and pick up the phone right then. It depends on what you're doing and how you're doing it and the money you're having to spend. And I don't know. I mean, do you kind of look at it like that? I mean,
well, yeah. So a couple of kind of questions in there is when you think about the head of the law firm, they are the CEO, they're the chief executive officer. All right. In any corporation, the CEO is in charge of the vision and what this all stands for. And so when you talk about, define that brand, yes, the CEO is like, here's who we are, this is what we stand for. This is what we want our customer base to believe and understand about the brand and get from the brand. And then here's where we need to go in year 1, 3, and 5. Your job then is to hire the people below you to live it, to agree with it, to protect it, to execute it, to bring it to life. Call it what you want. You're right. But you have to have the faith in those people can independently, autonomously protect this, bring it to life, make it live out there in the way your vision says it needs to live out there. And so call them what you want, but that's their job. That's their role, whether they're in-house or external partners. And as the CEO, you're talking about the brand, you're talking about the budget, you're talking about the investment, how much we need to spend and so forth. But you're also having conversations of, as a CEO, this is what I want the brand to live, and this is where I want to be in 3 to 5 years. Then your partner comes to the table and goes, look, based on our experience, based on our area in there, that's great, that's doable, or, that's a pipe dream. You have to realize you've got the 800-pound gorilla coming in the market. And so while that's beautiful, I think it's a little aggressive, it's unattainable. So let's reel that in a little bit and be more realistic. Unless you're a John F. Kennedy, big hairy audacious goal, let's put a man on the moon by the end of the decade. Kind of fine. Stretch goals, that gives you something to strive for. But regardless, the CEO needs to convey it and determine it, define it, convey it so that other people can pick it up and run with it. Then you've got who's in charge to run with it. You can't go 7 people, go do your thing, because even then you need to kind of corral the 7 people to make sure that they're still living it, they're protecting it, they're making it, turning it into a reality in the best way possible in their particular area. PR, media, organic, website, community, whatever. So the key is figure out what hats you need to wear and figure out who's best at them. And in some cases, you might have an up-and-coming admin person that just is really good with understanding, people and marketing. And so they might be great at protecting the brand and bringing the brand out there. And so you give them projects and you give them baby steps to develop. I mean, we have several clients that have had people that have been with their firm for, 10 years and they've evolved. I mean, they're in the ad agency world. I just heard that some bigwig getting recognized by a big trade association. That person was chief of creative for major agencies. And that person started literally as, a mail clerk back in the day, and they rose through the ranks. So you've got hidden talent. You just need to be, very in tune with who's on your staff. We have, for all of our staff, we have called scorecards. All right. And so we're looking at, potentially hiring some people this coming year. We write scorecards before we write job descriptions. The scorecard says, what are the key competencies? And then what are the KPIs for that role? Not the person, the role. What's an A player look like? And it says things like must achieve growth of KPIs 10% year over year for all of their assigned clients. So it gives very specific things, must be able to determine, anticipate roadblocks. And this is like resource management, project management, must be able to anticipate roadblocks. All right. And prevent them from happening. And so your KPI is 0 roadblocks. And so as a law firm owner, as a CEO, you should be thinking about what are the KPIs of these future people that I want to hire or people that I want to be marketing director, marketing manager. So that way I can then say, one KPI might be they keep the brand alive and on point. One might be they manage the partners and internal team effectively so that the brand has been rolled out and communicated through the various channels and platforms per the CEO's vision. It's things like that. And it's really an organizational component there in this conversation about who's in charge.
Yeah. I mean, I went through the Scale It Up with Burn Harness
Done it?
coaching program, and got certified. I mean, I guess since I don't pay my money anymore, I'm not certified, but they still can't take what they taught me away from me. but I just don't do I don't do the coaching anymore. But one thing that stuck out with me on that, and that was for anything, and was that each employee should have at least one, if not more than one KPI, so that they know what a win looks like. So they know if they're doing their job correctly, have some kind of, it's like a scorecard, right? I mean, that's what you call it, scorecard.
It's a scorecard. Yeah. That's a scaling up thing. I pulled it out of a scaling up book.
Yeah, yeah. And the thing but sometimes it gets tricky. Like we do that at Pilma. So the one that got me, and we had to work on it, was our graphic artist, because that's a very creative, subjective thing. Are they doing good work or are they not doing good work?
Yeah.
They came up with their own. They said, well, the big deal is getting something that's satisfactory, but getting it done in a timely manner. So the deal is, you give us a job, we got to have your first draft within 24 hours. You got to get back to, as soon as you get back to us, we got to have you another draft within, 24 hours. So their KPIs was based on time, which is objective, not subjective.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's fair, because I think subjective is what is in the eyes of the beholder. I mean, you either like some the
Yeah.
graphics, or you don't. But I found that to be hard, and sometimes, but like same things with video editors, and they've got certain times that they got to have stuff back. The subjective part of it, not really put that on. We either tell them, we love it or we don't love it, and they kind of get an idea of what we're trying to do. But I thought that was, I think that's like with SEO, you can say I want to rank here and on this word or this, that, different things. But social media, I think I want to ask you this. I mean, it used to be everybody wanted likes, but I think now the big deal is engagement. I mean, I don't need 10 million followers. I need like 200 engagers that are like commenting and sharing. I want that versus I want people just liking it. What do you think?
I would agree. It's definitely shifted because, back in the day, it was like, all right, well, clicks are cute, but I need revenue. And look, you've seen my presentations. You inevitably, I've got like a funnel in there, and it's like awareness. Then there's interest, intent, and then conversion. And it's just that. It's that middle part, which is top of it. People know me. My brand's known. Then can they consider me, and then they will hire me. And the like was great, but now it's become: are they engaged? Is there an intent? Are they interested in my brand, the services we offer? Is there a legitimate need there? And if they're interested in engaging with the brand, then that shows them, one, more qualified, but it also shows this level of interest or getting closer to making a decision or pre-qualifying them as a potential prospect or a potential client down the road. So yeah, as we've all grown and matured in the digital world and how we look at it and how we measure that, the measuring stick or the finish line has moved a little bit, and rightfully so, because, back in the day, it was, in the 90s, it was, look at all the clicks we got. I'm like, well, yeah, but half of them are illegitimate, not legal or
Yeah,
not valuable or questionable.
or they're from India.
Yeah, they're overseas and stuff like that. And so now, look, a tagline we're putting on the back of a T-shirt is, clicks are cute, but revenue is better. It's just that. And the conversation can be said with engagement. I'm sorry, and it's great, but I need revenue to keep the lights on. At the end of the day, and what's that most important thing that we're trying to measure? All this needs to pay you back. Our promise now is media should pay you back. All of it needs to pay you back to some degree. And if you spend $100,000 a year, you should be getting $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 out of it, and it should be measurable and accountable. And that's the vision from a CEO standpoint. Going, I need to grow, and if I'm going to spend $100,000, I want $400,000 in return. And then it's the marketing director of who's in charge to hold us all accountable and go, what are you doing to get us closer to that growth goal that was established in the business plan? And it's not look at the font or, what's the color of the billboard. There should be higher, more sophisticated level of conversations, because the 800-pound gorilla is rolling into your market. We won't name names, but we know who it is. There's this, how do you pivot? I know of a law firm in one of my clients' markets that just pivoted from a business model. And, they're a successful law firm, and they're a name that most people should know. And Yeah, they're still a law firm and still do all that stuff, but now they're running back end office services to other law firms. And it's just a big shift. And that's the CEO vision going, you know what? Running a law firm is great. I appreciated my time and I got a law degree hanging on the wall, but I now see the opportunity. And the opportunity is over here. And
Yeah.
the opportunity is being decided or discussed because of the 800-pound gorilla, being decided or discussed because of AI, all these things. Back to your scaling up, that's a planning kind of conversation of where do we want to go and who's going to help us get there.
Yeah. You were talking about, I've always wanted 5 or 6, though. I'll be honest with you, I'm greedy, evidently. But if I spend 100, I want 500 or 600. And I used to, back, 20 years ago, I could know because I had tracking numbers on my TV ads, my Yellow Page ads, my website. You got your Google Analytics. But that was way before internet. I did TV, Yellow Pages, and billboards, and community events. But the deal is,
Yeah.
I had tracking numbers on everything. It was very easy. Now, you got internet, you got LSAs, you got PPC, you got billboards, you got 500 different streaming TVs, you got
Different
radio,
platforms in
you
the
got
TV.
video, you got Pandora, you got this plethora. I mean, I just got through with a mastermind, and I've done 3 this month so far, and every one of them, this has been a subject. How can we really say that we know where our cases are coming from? Because we can ask them, and they'll say one thing, and then when we get the case in, they say, well, yeah, well, but Joe told me, and then I went and looked you up on the internet, or I saw your billboard, or they might see you 5 different places. But it's the attribution. Where did the case come from? If you just measure it from from a tracking number or things like that, I just don't get it anymore because I just don't believe that. I mean, so the question is, what I'm asking you is, and we had long discussions about it, people had different opinions about it. I want your opinion. How do you deal with this? Because, you want to get the best. What is it? What's that guy named? Johnny Wanamaker. Half of my marketing is working. I just
Yeah.
don't know which half.
One of them. Yeah.
Whatever his name was. But the deal was, in this age, with everything going on, how can we really know, especially somebody that's spending loads, hundreds of thousands or millions, how can we really know that this is working or this work? All we know is that I'm doing all this. It seems to be working pretty good. I'm getting a good ROI. I'm getting 5 times. I'm spending $1 million. I'm getting 5 million. So I must be doing okay. But are you leaving money on the table? Could you be doing better if if you did, you know what I'm saying? If you move some
Yeah.
stuff around, I think that's the question.
It is. It's a massive question in every industry because, to your comment about Wanamaker, I think his last name is like, I know 50% of my budget works. Marketing works. I just don't know which 50%. And it's a massive conversation. And I've said it before that you've got the Apples and the Walmarts and the Procter and Gambles of the world that have teams of data scientists and very, very smart people who are trying to figure this out. And they're even with that level of brain cells working on it, there's a level of, head scratching and they can't pinpoint it. And so there's a couple of things. One, I'm a big believer in brands. And so you have to have this unified brand. All right. And I get the idea of using tracking numbers and so forth. But when you have one phone number on a billboard and a different phone number on a different billboard, and then you've got a different phone number on your TV spot, and those are visual, and that is representative of your brand. Okay. I think you're doing a disservice to your brand and you're losing an opportunity. Case in point, I had one now client call me. I was in the, I wasn't in the office. I was taking off one day, one Friday, and the phone rang and I looked at the caller ID on my cell phone. I knew exactly who it was just by the phone number. Okay. There's branding there. And that's important because as I did a webinar a couple of weeks ago, I said that we are a memory category. The legal world is a memory category. And people, when they're injured and they're, distressed and all that, they react a certain way, not like a normal decision-making process. And so the firms that are entrenched in a brand, in a brain with their brand, those are the ones that win. We're in a memory and we're in a frequency kind of category. And so that's repetition and so forth. And so, when I think about attribution, it is incredibly challenging. Okay. You can see the clicks and the phone numbers, and when we run TV, we see a spike, but there's this correlation. Okay. And I got a video on our YouTube channel about this correlation, is that that's what you should be studying. Okay. It's very hard to say that one billboard made these 7 cases walk through the door, but you can say that one billboard in that particular part of town, in those zip codes that surround that one billboard, I'm starting to see cases come from those zip codes that I normally didn't see. Okay.
Right.
So then you can start making some, and there are assumptions, it's not ironclad, going, man, I'm seeing some things going on in the northwest part of town because that's where we started putting some focus on there. You can start looking at zip codes. You can start looking at addresses. If you're running YouTube, Hulu TV, whatever, and you're doing, digital world, you can trace IP addresses back to actual postal addresses. And so you can then go, hey, I'm seeing these cases from these zip codes and these addresses and, zip code +4. Interesting, I was running OTT then in that part of town. So you start, and it is a kind of geeky, nerdy kind of a thing. You got to roll up your sleeves and start comparing data to it, because you can't always rely on, yes, ask somebody how did you hear about this? But you have to realize that in the world of marketing and advertising, I'll admit that people don't want to admit that they were swayed by an ad. No, I go, man, I saw this ad and I bought this new pillow, or I saw this ad and I hired this law firm. They don't want to admit that marketing shaped their behavior, but that's what marketing does. So it's the data and the information. And so you do have to put a lot of thought and energy into it. But I will tell you, you'll never get it to perfection that'll say, I'm doing this one thing and that one thing generated 35% of my calls and my cases. All right. But with that in mind, what you do is you look at, I'm doing these 4 or 5 things and I'm doing them exceptionally well. And this is the message that I'm running in them. And when I do this is how many cases I get. Now, then you put a test budget together and always have a little bit of money to play with and say, I want to do this and this, or I want to change the message. Then watch how your cases react in the next week or 2, couple of weeks. All right. It's a long game, but if you've got the right team, you got the right vision going on, you're like, look, I'm doing these things. This is what happens. What if I did these things? You take one thing only. Don't change the whole foundation. All right. You might do some serious damage, but what if I just tweak 1 or 2 things? Great. I got this out of it. What if I tweak it a little bit more? Great. I got this. Tweak a little bit more. Oh, I went down. So you see the point of, diminishing returns there. That's what you want to do, because it's like a recipe. If I put this much ingredients in, that's what's going to happen. I'm going to get this product out of it at the end. So don't kill yourself on trying to find the 1 for 1. I do this one thing, I got this one case. It's very hard. And I know very large firms that have, and rightfully so, stopped looking at it as a 1 for 1, but started looking at it as, I got this mixture of things going on and I see this. That's their mentality. And they're going, I know that if I do these things, I'm going to increase my cases every year 5%, 10%, 20%. And my case value is going to stay the same or improve. And my cost per case is going to stay the same or maybe even come down a little bit.
Yeah. I think that's some great advice. And I hate it's come to this, because I used to love to really track all that stuff when it wasn't so many different, wasn't saturated with so many different ways to get people to raise their hand. And
yeah. Somebody had asked me, and it's online somewhere, I talked about it, maybe it was one of our social media videos, but they said, what's something you should stop doing? And it was just that. It was getting so obsessive about the analytics and the data, because you're chasing something that is near impossible to find out or to figure out, that, one equals 1 kind of a thing. But instead, look at the bigger picture, going, when I do these things, I know I'm going to get this out of it. Let me tweak these things. Constantly be tweaking one thing. Constantly be playing with it. The message, the audience, the media platforms, the neighborhoods, the communities, all of that. Constantly be experimenting. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah, there was this great, I can't remember his name. I think it was Mendoza or whatever. He was a really big digital marketer. He died in one of these car crash, but his big deal was, he said, when I went in the office every morning, I want to know what we were split testing. And he said, what are we split testing today? What are we it was always trying to beat yesterday's, we're trying to figure out how can we get the numbers up. And the only way you can do it is, like you say, one thing, test it. It might keep it the same. It might bring it up. It might bring it down. If it brings it up,
Yeah.
da. But anyway, yeah, I do that a lot with ads.
Got to.
Split test ads. You've got two ads.
Oh, yeah. Landing pages, ads. Is it a video at the top of the landing page? Is it, video versus animated graphic? Is it video versus static? I mean, you should look, you go fishing. You don't bring one lure, you bring a tackle box full of things. You think about a chef that's in the kitchen. They're constantly experimenting and trying to see what's and that's why they've got menus change and seasonal menus because we got some new things that we can prepare.
Yeah. Well, this has been great, man. Listen, by the way, Eric's going to be speaking at our summit this year, May the 20th through the 23rd, I think. Might be the 21st through the 23rd in beautiful San Antonio. And we'll be one of our featured speakers the first day, if I remember correctly.
I believe so.
Look forward to seeing you there. Great content, great insight, as always. People want to get up with you and pick your brain. How's the best way to do it?
RouxAdvertising.com, ROUX advertising.com. I'm at Eric at Roux, ERIC. Yeah, I'm all on all the platforms, LinkedIn. Email me, track us down on the website. I will happily talk about this as much as you want. Pick my brain.
All right. Good deal.
I appreciate this. This has been fun. Love the conversations.
Yeah, thank you. Until next time, this is Ken Hardison, dedicated to your success.
You have been listening to the Grow Your Law Firm podcast, the podcast that leads lawyers to more growth, profit, and freedom. Go to growyourlawfirm.com to find more ways to market and manage your law firm. Please leave us a rating and review wherever you listen to your podcasts.